ayes have it. The ayes have it. I call the clerk.
Government Business Order of the Day number 1, Social Services Legislation Amendment, Cashless Debit Card Bill 2017, further consideration in Committee of the Whole.
Order. The Senate is considering the Social Services Legislation Amendment, Cashless Debit Card Bill 2017. The question is that the bill stand as printed. Senator Cameron.
Thanks, Chair. Labour has a number of amendments that we want to propose to the bill. They are contained in sheet 8354. In relation to the amendments, we believe that there is insufficient evidence at this stage to show that the existing trials in Ceduna and the East Kimberley are working. The Senate inquiry heard that the ARIMA evaluations of the trial are unreliable and that no empirical judgments can be made on the basis of the information collected. In its own consultations, Labour heard mixed results, with some participants in Ceduna and the East Kimberley trials finding the cashless debit card to be useful, while others thought it had not made any improvement to their lives. In addition to the poor quality of the evaluation, Labour believes that the Ceduna and the East Kimberley trials have not been running long enough to form solid conclusions about the success of the trials. Labour supported the initiation of trials in Ceduna and East Kimberley and supports them continuing for a further year to allow more time to reliably determine whether they have been successful. And in the context of what I've just indicated, we would be opposed to Schedule 1, Item 1, page 3, lines 4 to 6, and I would move Schedule 1, Item 2, page 3, lines 7 and 8, omit the item and substitute the issues that have been outlined on 8354.
So, are you seeking leave to move them together, Senator?
Yeah, I'll move them. Yeah, move them together, but I will want to have something to say on each aspect of them.
Senator Cameron,
Minister, I call the Minister.
I'm representing the Minister for Social Services. In terms of organisation, if I could move the government amendments first, and see where that goes, and then we will deal with the opposition's amendments. I'm not sure what the position is in the chamber. And then that way we deal with the government's amendments, and then, Senator Cameron, if we can then deal with your amendments, because from what you've just said, you probably will put them separately, like move 1 and 2 separately. Is that the case? That might be the better organisational way of dealing with it. If you're happy with that, Senator Cameron, can we just get this?
Happy with that, Senator Fierravanti-Wells. I did indicate I thought you may stand on these issues before I did, but that's fine.
Sorry.
So call the Minister.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the government will move amendments on sheet AS 301, and the government is the government amendments extend the trial of the cashless debit card to 30 June 2019. The amendments also specify that the trial will be limited to 3 sites, namely the East Kimberley and the included communities, Ceduna and the surrounding regions and the goldfields. The bill retains the existing legislated limitations on trial parameters in relation to the number of sites, participant numbers and the duration of the cashless debit card trial. Under the current legislation, trial sites are determined via legislative instrument. The bill removes this ability and specifically names the trial areas. Instead, the minister will be able to declare that specific parts of the trial areas are exempt from the cashless debit card. This provides the government with the flexibility to remove localities. This reflects that discussions with communities in the Goldfields region are ongoing and that requirements for communities already on the cashless debit card may change over time. Now, we say that the change is needed. The government amendments to the bill will provide certainty for the communities currently engaged in the trial and or the communities of the Goldfields, which has asked the government to expand the cashless debit card to their community. Currently, the debit card trial is due to cease on the 30th of June this year. An independent evaluation of the CDC existing trial sites was conducted by Orima Research in 2016-17. The evaluation found that the card had a considerable positive impact in both trial sites. Overall, the research found that the CDC trial has been effective in reducing alcohol consumption and gambling on both trial sites and was also suggestive of a reduction in the use of illegal drugs. Continuing the cashless debit card in Ceduna and the East Kimberley will focus on sustaining these impacts in the longer term. If the current end date is not extended, the program must cease by 30 June 2018, which will risk undermining the positive outcomes already being experienced by these communities. Furthermore, the government has committed to expand the program to the Goldfields region. Failure to amend the legislation will prevent this. This expansion will help test the card in different settings, and I move the amendments on sheet AS 301.
Senator Cameron.
Yeah, just Minister. So, are you moving the 5 different areas? Are you moving them one at a time? That's going to just get clarification on that.
It's a single amendment that has 5 parts, Senator.
Senator Cameron, no, we're going to move them all together.
Okay. Well, if I then can just go to each one of the amendments that you have before the Senate. We oppose this amendment. There is insufficient evidence, and I've said this in the second reading speech. I indicated it earlier tonight that there is insufficient evidence at this stage to show that the existing trials in Ceduna and the East Kimberley are working. So that is an issue to start with, and that's why we would oppose any expansion of the trial. We don't support the expansion of the trial at this stage. We supported the initiation of trials in Ceduna and the East Kimberley and support them continuing for a further year to allow more time to reliably determine whether they have been successful. Now, the amendment I propose to move on this bill deals with that aspect. The second part of your amendment goes to defining the trial area. The current legislation in the bill doesn't define the trial area. This is currently done through a legislative instrument. This government amendment defines the trial areas as Ceduna area, East Kimberley area and the Goldfields area. Now, we oppose this part of the amendment, and any move to expand the trial without sufficient evidence to demonstrate its success will be opposed. Labour requires a much more rigorous evaluation of the cashless debit card in the existing trial areas prior to any expansion. The trials are also of a significant cost. Labour understands that there is a current accrued cost of $25.5 million, or around $12,000 per participant. We also know that the government spent around $1.6 million to Orima Research to provide substandard evaluation, and the Minister still won't reveal how much it will cost the taxpayers to expand the rollout of the card to the Goldfields area. Now, Minister, before I go any further, can you just confirm that there is an accrued cost of $25.5 million, or $12,000 per participant, and that the ORIMA research cost $1.6 million? And can you reveal how much it will cost taxpayers to expand the rollout of the card to the Goldfields area?
Minister.
Senator Cameron, I'm advised that the overall cost is $1,000 per person.
Senator Cameron.
Well, that's what about the accrued cost of $25.5 million?
Minister.
I'm advised that there's an initial upfront cost and there's no ongoing cost. Just yes, the bulk of the cost of the program relates to upfront implementation, and these upfront costs include industry and community consultation, the card provider creating a new debit card and information technology system, as well as the independent evaluation of the trial. Any future costs associated with the program, including expanding to additional sites, will be significantly lower per head than the amount estimated for the trial, and I'm instructed that it works out at $1,000 per head long term.
Senator Cameron.
Thanks. So I'm still unclear. I mean, the $1,000 per head long term, as you say, I'm not sure where that figure comes from. So maybe you could explain that figure. And I want to bring you back to the accrued cost to the present time. And the advice I have is that that's $25.5 million. Maybe you could just deal with those two issues. I advise how you achieve this figure of $1,000, how that works out.
Minister.
I'm advised that the upfront consultation with communities is how we get up to the $25 million, and the set-up fees.
Senator Cameron.
Thanks. So my understanding that the accrued cost of $25.5 million is correct. So can you now explain how it becomes $1,000 per participant and not the $12,000 that I'm advised?
Minister.
I'm advised, Senator Cameron, that those are upfront costs and for the setup, and of course, and that long term, the cost is reduced down to $1,000 per person.
Senator Cameron.
Thanks. So Minister, you're basically subtracting the $25.5 million upfront costs to achieve a $1,000 per participant outcome. Is that correct?
Well, I'm instructed that these.
Minister.
Thank you. I'm instructed that the $25 million, about $25 million, is the bulk of the program, and it's for upfront implementation, which is normally normal practice with a new initiative. And these upfront costs include the industry and community consultation, the card provider creating a new debit card and information technology system, which of course stays with the life of the program once it's been created, as well as the independent evaluation of the system. And so clearly any future costs associated with the program, even the expanding to additional sites, will be significantly lower per head than the amount that was originally estimated for the trial. That's what I'm advised.
Senator Cameron.
So maybe you could ask your advisors, is if we count the $25.5 million, which is the what you describe as the upfront amount, that still would be $12,000 per participant if you include the $25.5 million. Is that correct?
Minister.
Sorry, Senator Cameron, could you just, I was just getting, if I can assist you, I'm advised that other similar income management programs work out to about $3,000 per head. If you could kindly repeat your question, Senator Cameron, that would be good.
Senator Cameron.
Minister. So we understand that the accrued cost is $25.5 million, and that would, I think, include what you describe as upfront costs. So for the numbers of people being forced to participate in this, it would equal $12,000 per participant if you include the $25.5 million. It's a simple question.
Minister.
Advise Senator Cameron, yes, sort of your point being that at this point in time, I mean, with the trial as it is, it does work out to 12,000. But of course, what we've worked out is that into the future, the cost is going to come considerably down as a consequence of those upfront costs having already been met, and that now I'm advised that it will be $1,000 per person over the long term.
Senator Seward.
Sorry, I thought you'd finished, Minister.
No. I'm just. It's easier for me just to stand
Okay.
rather than sit.
In other words, it's still that cost per person. You know, it's still that cost per person. But I'm wondering if, in that, you include the cost of the additional service provision in terms of the so-called wraparound services, the additional staff that's needed in terms of rolling it out in a particular area, the additional cost of providing the additional FPOS machines. Does it include all those sorts of costs?
Minister.
I am advised, Senator Seward, yes, it does.
Senator Cameron.
So, Minister, you indicated that the cost of $1,000 was over the long term. Over how many years is the long term?
Minister.
To the end of June 2019.
Long term?
Senator Cameron.
That's less
Sorry,
than 18
Senator
months.
Cameron, let me just clarify
Minister.
this. If you would just give me a few minutes, if you don't mind. Sorry, Senator Cameron, if I can, one of the advisors is just going to get that clarified, so we'll come back to you on that. Sorry, while we're at it, you've got. Sorry, Senator Seward, more on.
Senator Seward.
Sorry, Chair. How many participants, because the situation's changed from when we were first saw this legislation, how many participants you are calculating then for the Goldfields trial? Okay. In that calculation for the cost.
1,000, yes, thank you. So the number of participants.
Minister.
Yes. About 3,600 for the Goldfields.
Senator Cameron.
So, Minister, while you're clarifying whether 18 months is long term or not, is there a cost for just the Goldfields?
Minister.
I'm advised that that we wouldn't be the costs for the operating the additional sites are not for publication due to potential commercial sensitivities.
Senator Seward.
So we're just expected to believe that the costs come down from 12,000 to 1,000 when you're not telling us what the costs are for the Goldfields. How do you arrive at that if you won't tell us all the facts? How are we expected to believe you?
Minister.
Thank you, Senator Seward. I'm seeking clarification and as part of the clarification, I'd like to be able to explain to you the process. So if you will bear with me, I will get that information for you.
Senator Cameron.
So, Minister, are you claiming public interest immunity on the cost for the goldfields?
Minister.
I'm advised that we wouldn't publish commercial in confidence information related to those contracts. I will provide you with as much information as I can, so if you'll just bear with me, I've just got some additional information. Okay. I'm advised that the $1,000 is for 4 sites to 2020, which is still government policy.
Senator Cameron.
Minister, you've been here a fair time, and you know that you just can't, claim, commercial in confidence without a public interest immunity claim and laying out the details of why this would be a public interest immunity claim. I mean, I know it's Larry Anthony, former National Party leader, who's got a finger in the pie here, but that doesn't lead to public. That doesn't mean public interest immunity. It doesn't mean that you can claim commercial in confidence. You understand that you have to provide these details to the Senate.
Minister.
Senator Cameron, are you reflecting on Larry Anthony? And if you are making some sort of accusation, can you just be clear about that? You are reflecting on him in some way, shape or form, so perhaps you might like to reflect on that.
He is a former member.
Senator Cameron.
Mr Anthony is a former Member of Parliament. I am entitled to raise these issues without having to explain any reflection. Are you denying that Mr Anthony has got a finger in the pie?
Minister.
Sorry? No, he does. I'm advised he does not.
Okay.
That's what I'm advised, Senator Cameron.
Yeah, thanks.
Senator Cameron.
So do we have a cost for the gold? So you won't provide a cost for the gold fields? So if you are saying that this is commercial in confidence, you know that Odgers doesn't accept the proposition of commercial in confidence, you have to lay out a public interest immunity claim.
Well,
Minister.
So you asked me a question about costs. I'm telling you that costs for operating additional sites are not for publication due to potential commercial sensitivities, because there are contracts and contractual obligations involved. I've explained to you that the cost of the 4 sites to 2020 is $1,000 per person. Those are my instructions, and unless I have, I can seek further instructions, but that's what I'm instructed to put to the Senate.
Senator Cameron.
Okay. I'm just not sure I want to accept that at this stage. I might come back to that. So where we're up to, I think, is our opposition to the inclusion of the goldfields. We take the view that any move to expand the trial without sufficient evidence will be opposed. We want a more rigorous evaluation. The trials are a significant cost. I think you've confirmed what our estimate was, that it's about $25.5 million, or about $12,000 per participant. I'm sure if you... Has the government looked at whether spending $12,000 per participant and providing some more wraparound support, some advice on how to handle the payments, the government payments they receive, providing them some, those that need it, alcohol and drug support. Wouldn't that be a better spend than how you're looking to do this without proper evaluation?
Minister.
I'm advised that we are providing a $10 million wraparound services support package for drug and alcohol support.
And does that
Senator Cameron.
included in the 25.5 million?
No, it's not.
So it's 25.5 million plus 10 million. So it's 35.5 million. So it's more than $12,000 per participant in relation to the whole cost of this programme.
Minister.
I'm instructed that that $10 million for drug and alcohol is for people not just on the trial, but people around Australia.
Senator Cameron.
Well, that's not what I asked. So can you give me a figure of the cost for drug and alcohol support for those who are participating in the project?
Minister.
Thank you. Just if you would bear with me, Senator Cameron.
Minister.
I'm advised to complement the rollout of the debit card. We are committed to an additional $1 million in Ceduna and $1.6 million in the East Kimberley in new funding for support services in the first 12 months to ensure vulnerable people were supported. And in relation to goldfields, these communities, it will also be an additional $1 million in funding for wraparound services. So it's $1 million in Ceduna, $1.6 million in East Kimberley, and $1 million Goldfields.
Senator Cameron.
Thanks. So the $1.6 million to Arima, is that? Do you agree that that was the cost for the what was a substandard evaluation?
Minister.
Well, first of all, I don't accept your premise, Senator Cameron, that it was a substandard evaluation. And I will get a figure on the. Thank you. The cost, I do confirm the cost was $1.6 million, but the evaluation stated that the card had shown considerable positive impact in communities, including 48% of drug takers using fewer drugs, 41% of drinkers drinking less, and 48% of gamblers gambling less.
Senator Cameron.
Thanks. Minister, when are you proposing that the Goldfields trial will start?
Minister.
Sometime in the next 6 months.
Senator Cameron.
Have contracts for the expansion been signed?
No.
Minister.
So if there's no contracts been signed, Minister, why would this be confidential?
Minister.
Because I'm advised that there is a tender process.
Senator Cameron.
Now, standing orders say there's no general basis to refuse the disclosure of commercial information to the Parliament, even if it has been marked commercial in confidence. Do you agree with that, Minister?
Minister.
I'm advised that there's no way that we can release it because it's not even published in budget papers.
Senator Cameron.
So, Senate standing orders indicate that the Senate and Senate committees shall not entertain any claim to withhold information from the Senate or a committee on the grounds that it is commercial in confidence unless the claim is made by a minister and is accompanied by a statement setting out the basis for the claim, including a statement of any commercial harm that may result from the disclosure of the information. So you're a minister, you can make the claim, but you've got to set out the basis for the claim, including a statement of any commercial harm that may result.
Minister.
I'm advised that this is a commercial in confidence figure which will not be released because it affects government contracts. That's what I'm advised, Senator Cameron. Now, I'm sure we've got estimates coming up. I'm sure that you'll pursue it with vigour at estimates, as you normally do, Senator Cameron. But at this point in time, I can't take the matter further than that.
Senator Cameron.
Well, I don't cover this area in estimates, but I might make a quick...
I am sure, Senator...
Sorry, Minister, Senator Cameron hasn't finished his question, and it's not easy to work out who's got the call here.
Yeah, so I might make a quick visit on this specific issue. So how can you, if there's been no contract signed and it's up for a tender, how can you provide us a figure of $1,000 when it's still the subject of a tender process?
Minister.
Senator Cameron, I'm advised that that figure is actually a departmental estimate.
Senator Cameron.
So it could be more. How did the department estimate this?
Minister.
Based on existing contracts, similar existing contracts.
Senator Cameron.
Yeah, thanks. So the third aspect of your amendment flows from the previous two and allows the minister by legislative instrument to define the areas that are Ceduna area, Goldfields area and the East Kimberley area. Is that correct?
Minister.
Sorry, Senator Cameron, before I deal with that, I'm advised that there has been a FOI request put in by Ms Macklin, and the response to that, if I can quote the response to it, financial impact of the measure to expand the cashless debit card is announced in the 17-18 budget and not for publication, marked as NFP to protect the Commonwealth commercial interests. So I'm advised that's the response that was forwarded to Ms Macklin. And sorry, Senator Cameron, you asked me a question, and if you could just kindly repeat it.
Senator Cameron.
So the purpose of the amendment, as I read it, flows from the previous two areas and allows the minister, by legislative instrument, to define the areas that are the Ceduna area, the Goldfields area and the East Kimberley area. Is that correct?
Minister.
It's actually defined in the Act, Senator Cameron. So, yeah, it's defined in the Act. So I am advised that if there are to be further sites, that would require another bill to come before the parliament. So protecting the parliamentary oversight, but it's a higher protection, if I can put it in that way, rather than being done by delegated legislation, where it would be a disallowable instrument. But this is a situation where we would have to come back to the parliament because it's actually legislated, so we'd have to come back to parliament if we wanted to go to further sites. And of course that affords parliament the opportunity of scrutiny.
Thank you, Senator Cameron.
Welcome, Chair. What I'm trying to understand is this amendment would allow the Minister, by legislative instrument, to determine an area for the purposes of a trial area. That's, as I understand, that's the situation that this amendment or this bill will allow. You're saying it's not.
Senator Fierravanti-Wells.
I'm advised that the section defines the trial area, but it does may, by legislative instrument, and this is 124 PD2, determine a part of that area to not be a trial site. So it really does give Senator Cameron, if I can say this, a much firmer outline in relation to those areas. And again, if it's done by legislative instrument, we're talking about a legislative instrument in relation to a part of that area. And again, that legislative instrument is disallowable by Parliament.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cameron.
Thanks.
Has that answered your question, Senator Cameron?
Yes, it has. So the Labour's position is that we will oppose the amendment. We can't give a blank cheque to expand a trial where there is insufficient evidence to warrant doing so. We support the continuation of the Ceduna and East Kimberley trials to give further time for them to work and demonstrate their success. And the fourth part of your amendment goes to extending the trial period, the current trial and an additional proposed trial in the goldfields. So we would support the continuation of the Ceduna and East Kimberley trials for a further year to give time for the trial to work and for a proper evaluation to be held. We don't support an additional trial location, and as such we oppose this amendment. We have our own amendments to extend the current trial sites for a further year, and we oppose the amendment that omits up to 3 discrete and substitutes the. We don't support expansion of the trial at this point in any way.
Thank you, Senator Cameron. Minister. While the Minister's getting advice, the committee is considering Government Amendment number 1. Minister.
Senator Cameron, thank you for that indication. My instructions are to move the amendments on AS 301.
Thank you, Minister. The question is that Government Amendment number 1 on sheet AS 301 be agreed to. Those of that opinion, Senator Seward.
Thank you. While I did participate a little bit in the question and answer, I have some questions myself around this, and I also want to articulate the Greens' position. I wanted to ask, there are a number of points I brought up during the debate which are clearly major points of difference between ourselves and the government. However, some of the feedback and specific issues I've had around costing we've just had a look at. What I specifically wanted to know around the Inju card, which is an operational detail, is why has the government or Inju not reissued the cards that aren't usable on EFTPOS machines? Let's do that one to begin with.
Thank you, Senator Seward. Minister.
Senator Seward, I'm advised that all of our cards are usable on EFTPOS. Well, thank you, Senator Seward.
Senator Seward.
I'm sorry, but they're simply not. In fact, I was talking to someone yesterday who I'm not going to last week, who I'm not going to publicly name, who, if you have an Inju card with EFTPOS written in it, you can EFTPOS. If you don't, you can't. And what I've been informed, and if that's wrong, I think you need to tell some of the participants, is that they can be used. The cards, when they were originally issued, could not be. Subsequently, there was a fix made and they can be, but the cards weren't reissued. So those that don't know to apply for a new card still cannot. And that was as of, and I'm sorry I misled the Senate a little bit, it was not last week, it was the week before last.
Thank you, Senator Seward. Minister.
I'm advised, Senator Seward, that all the cards can be used with EFTPOS. That's what I'm advised.
Senator Seward.
Perhaps if we can...
I'll take that offline, and we've got estimates coming, so
thank you.
I'll double check, but I can tell you what,
well, Senator Seward,
just one
thank
moment.
you.
It would assist the running of the committee if we don't talk over each other.
Thank
we'll
you.
Wait for the call. So, Minister.
Thank you. Perhaps, Senator Seward, if you wouldn't mind giving us details of those particular circumstances, and I'm sure that the department can follow up those particular instances, and if there is some procedure that hasn't been taken in relation to applying or something, we can perhaps look at that in the interim period.
Senator Seward.
My next question then relates to this issue of how people can use the card electronically, and again, I'm given to understand by participants who have been trying to do this, is you can't use BPay, and you have to use the card as a credit card and hand over the number of your card to the merchant rather than you being able to transfer funds electronically. Is that still the case? And if it is still the case, could you please articulate why that is the case?
Minister.
I'm told that you use credit card and you give the number of the card, but we are looking at other technological assistance and other technological options.
Senator Seward.
Does that mean that as somebody with the card can then doesn't have to hand over their number and can actually operate it like a normal bank account, which is the claim that's constantly made about this, that anybody on the card just operates it like a normal bank account, when in fact that's just not true?
Minister.
Senator Seward, we will get you further advice in relation to that. I can't provide you with an answer on that one just at the moment, except to say that we are looking at other technological improvements and options in relation to it, so that the credit card and number of the credit card are not the only options.
Senator Seward.
Thank you. I appreciate that update. Could you outline the timeline for the technological changes?
Minister.
I'm told it is a trial and the review is ongoing. At this point in time, I can't give you a precise time. And I'm also advised it is commercial in confidence, but we will certainly take your comments on board, Senator Seaworth, and I'm sure you too will pursue this matter at estimates, and I can rest assured that I will be there with an answer at estimates in a couple of weeks' time.
Senator Seaworth.
Does that mean the technology is commercial in confidence, or the cost of the updated process is commercial in confidence?
Minister.
I'm advised that the procurement of new technology is commercially in confidence.
Senator Seaworth.
Does this go to this issue of whether it's Inju providing it or whether there's an expansion of the providers of the card as per the reports in the media a couple of weeks ago about a number of financial institutions and major merchants providing advice to government? Does it relate to that, or is it something entirely separate?
Minister.
I'm advised that that's speculative. At this point in time, Senator Seaworth, I can't provide you with a definite answer. Suffice to say that we are looking at procurement of new technology.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Seaworth.
So we don't know how much it's costing because that's commercial in confidence, but we're told, trust us, it's $1,000 per head. We don't know how the new. We're told there's going to be new technology, but we don't have a timeline, and we're told that's commercial in confidence. That's the case that we're facing here. The Greens won't be supporting any of these amendments. We don't support the cashless welfare card. We don't support the extension of the East Kimberley trial or the Sojourner trial. Contrary to the oft-stated facts around reduction in drinking, etc., it's not borne out by even a proper read of the AREMA Wave 2 report. If you read the full report, even in there, they can't gloss over the lack of information, the anecdotal approach, the flawed approach to the methodology. Simply not borne out. So we won't support an extension to the 2 trial areas. And we certainly won't be supporting the expansion to a 3rd trial site, which I'm speculating here, but given that the NXT party, NXT, signalled that they were open to considering another trial site, although this is a government amendment, it's clearly been done in response to the NXT's support for a 3rd trial site in my state, in Western Australia, in the goldfields, when we already have 1 trial site. I think it's a bit rich, quite frankly, for them to say, oh yeah, we'll support another trial site, make it in Western Australia. I've got deep concerns around that. I've got deep concerns that, although they've said there's not enough information to make a decision on the 2 existing trial sites, they've condemned, the Minister just articulated, over 3,000 income support recipients in the goldfields to living on this flawed card with a method that's flawed. And guess what? It's happening on the day that the government's just tabled the Closing the Gap report, which is articulated that we're not going to meet targets on life expectancy, on school attendance, on reading and numeracy, and employment. We already know in that goldfields area that we have significant impacts of the another flawed program of the CDP program, and we have spoken at length about that particular issue in this place as well. We don't support this legislation. We don't support the amendments because it doesn't improve it, and we disagree with the ALP in terms of extending the 2 existing trial sites for another 12 months. A little bit of advice to ALP: drop the addiction to income management. Really? Doesn't work, it's time to move on. But to the government I say we won't be supporting these amendments. We don't support the cashless welfare card. It's flawed policy. It's ignoring the Prime Minister's own words from his mouth saying you do things with the community, not to the community. And you can dress it up all you like that you've consulted. You haven't consulted with the people that are affected by this card. That is very, very clear and is admitted in the evidence. It's admitted in the evidence, so you can't deny it. And even the leaders in the East Kimberley, a number of them have withdrawn their support, as have a number of people that originally signed up in Ceduna, once they realised what this was about and the impact it was having. In fact, I was talking to a participant from Ceduna again very recently. They said one of the things it has managed to do is unite the Aboriginal and the non-Aboriginal community a lot better than they used to be, because they don't support the cashless welfare card. So it's achieved something there at great grief, personal pain and discomfort to many people on the card. We don't support these. We won't be supporting these amendments.
Thank you, Senator Siewert. Minister.
Sorry, I just wanted briefly to respond to some of the comments that Senator Siewert made. Senator Siewert, the cashless debit card is only implemented in communities that support it. Support for the card is measured through extensive consultation with interested communities. So far, consultation has covered all relevant stakeholder groups, including potential program participants. The initial trials were designed and implemented in close consultation with community leaders. I'm advised that approximately 300 consultations were held in the Ceduna region and 110 in the East Kimberley prior to the initial rollout in early 2016. Those consulted included community members, Indigenous leaders, service providers, police, local and state government agencies. Consultation is conducted on an ongoing basis in both Ceduna and the East Kimberley, and extensive consultation was undertaken prior to announcing the expansion of the card to the Goldfields. Between May and December 2017 in the Goldfields region, over 300 consultations were held with over 86 organisations and 10 public information sessions, and consultation will be ongoing in the Goldfields in preparation for implementation.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cameron.
Thanks, Chair. Couple of points. Firstly, in relation to the advice from Senator Rhiannon, we don't need your advice. If you've got good advice, could I advise you to keep it for Mr Bant, who got us into so much trouble and got the Greens into so much trouble this week. And I don't know how anyone could have turned Senator Molan into a victim. So if you've got good advice, keep it for Mr Bant, because he needs it more than us. In relation to the what I indicated earlier about Mr Anthony, I have now received advice that he is not with the group who is Inju, who are responsible for the card, but that he is a lobbyist for that group, that he is also the National Party president, and he operates as a lobbyist as well as the National Party president. My view is that that breaches the lobbyist code. And, Minister, do you have any views on whether the activities of the former National Party Cabinet Minister, Mr Larry Anthony, breaches the lobbyist code established by the government, given that he is a lobbyist for the Inju group who are developing the card, and the Inju group are making money out of the card, and so is Mr Anthony?
Thank you, Senator Cameron. Minister.
Senator Cameron, the department has undertaken two procurement processes resulting in the procurement of Indue, the card provider for the cashless debit card program. All procurement processes undertaken by the department followed all relevant procurement guidelines. The department received independent probity advice from Maddox that procurement processes were conducted in accordance with the Commonwealth procurement rules, relevant legislation, policies and probity principles.
Senator Cameron.
Minister, do you have a consultation report for the goldfields, and if so, will you table it?
Minister.
I'll just... Senator Cameron, I'm instructed that between May and December 2017 in the Goldfields region, over 300 consultations were held with over 86 organisations and 10 public information sessions, and consultation will be ongoing in the Goldfields in preparation for implementation.
Senator Cameron.
Minister, what was the result of the consultations, and can you provide us the names of the 86 organisations that were consulted?
Minister.
Senator Cameron, I'm instructed that we can provide the names of those organisations, but we can't do that at this moment and can't table it. If you're happy to take, I'm happy to take that on notice if I can. I'm just logistically not able to provide you the 86 organisations at this point in time.
Senator Cameron.
Thanks, Minister. I look forward to receiving that information. How many of those 86 organisations opposed the implementation of the card in the Goldfields area?
Minister.
I'm instructed that all 5 local government areas were in favour and advised the Prime Minister of that when he visited the area. The 5 shires in the Goldfield told the Prime Minister they want the card to see how it can improve their communities. That's what I'm advised.
Senator Cameron.
Yeah, Minister, that's fine. They were, I suppose, 5 out of 86. I'm simply asked how many of the 86 opposed the implementation of the card in the Goldfields.
Minister.
Senator Cameron, those five shires represent and have been duly elected by the people of that area, and they are speaking, one assumes, on behalf of their constituency, and they have advised the Prime Minister that they want the card to see how it can improve their communities. I can't add any further to that.
Senator Cameron.
Thanks, Minister. I've got a terrific council, a great local mayor in the Blue Mountains, but he doesn't speak for me on every issue. He doesn't represent me in every issue. There are another 81 organisations that were consulted. How many of those organisations? A simple question. You can tell me those that support it, but you can't tell me those that oppose it. Can't you tell me how many opposed it? I think it's a simple question, and given that you are saying it's got support and you're using the consultation as the reason to roll this out, I'm simply asking how many opposed it?
Minister.
Senator Cameron, the best that I can do is I'll take that on notice, but I note your comments about Blue Mountains Council. Obviously, you're in the same in agreement with Ray Hadley about some of the issues that have been happening with the Blue Mountains Council. We won't canvass that at the moment, but I'm happy to hear that you're not sitting on the same side as that council, given some of the allegations that have been raised. But in any case, we will take that on notice. You want a breakdown of the 86? We'll give you the names and we'll provide you with as much information as we can in relation to that.
Senator Cameron.
Just asking for the names. And just for the public record, I do not support anything that Ray Hadley has indicated, probably in his whole career, as a right-wing extremist mouthpiece for, in many occasions, the Liberal Party of New South Wales. So no, I don't agree with Ray Hadley. So I didn't ask simply for a list of the names. I'm asking how many of those opposed, and while you're at it, can you advise me as to those who did oppose, why they opposed it?
Minister.
Senator Cameron, I'm not sure if I can advise you what their actual positions were, but I can provide you with the names of the 86 organisations now, if you'd like me to. They are the Western Australian Government, the Western Australian Police, the Department of Housing, the Rural Clinical School of Western Australia, the Department of Sports and Recreation, the Department of Justice, the Department of Planning and Land...
Order. Senator Cameron. No, Senator Cameron.
Chair,
just if you do get a
on indulgence. I'm happy for the Minister.
Senator Cameron, you have the call on indulgence.
Sorry. Thanks, Chair. Look, I don't want to put you through the agony of going through 86 different groups. You said you would provide that. I'm happy to receive that advice. But what I'm more interested in is how many opposed. And if you're not prepared to advise who opposed it and why they opposed it, can you explain why you're not prepared to do that?
Okay. Thank you, Senator Cameron. Minister, Senator Cameron did interrupt you. You're entitled to conclude your answer. But Senator Cameron, I think, was trying to be helpful to prevent you reading through the entire list. So it's entirely in your hands.
Well, I want to be helpful to Senator Cameron to tell him that I've been advised that the whole list is available as an answer to a question on notice, inquiry into the Social Services Legislation Amendment Cashless Debit Card Bill 2017. So it's already provided in an answer to a question, and in relation to what position they had, I am unable to provide that information. I'm unable to provide that information.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cameron.
Can I ask you why you are unable to provide that information? I would have thought if we're here debating the introduction of this card into a new area and you are justifying the introduction on the basis that there's been consultation, surely logic demands that you tell us who opposed it and why they opposed it. I just don't think it's acceptable to say we're not going to tell you. If you're not going to tell us, why won't you tell us?
Minister.
Senator Cameron, I'm advised that we'd have to go and get a statement from each of those organisations, including whether they are prepared to have their position put on the public record. So that's what I'm advised.
Minister. Senator Cameron.
Yeah, so it's a secret consultation. And we are not allowed to know the outcome of that consultation. Why would this be a secret? If people are engaging in a consultation, you can tell us who they were, you can tell us who support it, but you can't tell us who opposed it. It just beggars belief.
Minister.
Senator Cameron, it's logical. We had a consultation. Some people agreed. I mean, there was obviously a discussion. I cannot provide you with the position. It was a public, open consultation, I'm advised, but I cannot tell you what the exact position was of every 86 of those organisations. And for me to do so would mean for me to have to go to them and just say, OK, what is your position? Now, If that's what you want me to take on notice, I will take that on notice. I will see what I can do, but I cannot give you the information that you seek at this point in time without going back to each of those organisations.
Senator Cameron.
Well, fine, if you've got to take it on notice, that's fine. But, you know, for anyone that might be listening, the government can quickly tell us who supports this expansion of the card. They can provide us the name of 5 groups that support the expansion of the card, but another 81 the minister can't or won't tell us who opposed it. So maybe I can ask another way. So I'd like you to take it on notice who opposed it and why they opposed it. And so who conducted the consultations?
Minister.
The department. And I'll take the other part of it on notice, Senator Cameron.
Senator Seward.
Build on Senator Cameron's question on notice, and that is ask, was there any minutes taken or notes taken on how many people supported it and how many didn't? So a rough sort of hands up or something like that in these meetings.
Minister.
Senator Seward, I will take that component of it as part of the... Yes, thank you.
Okay. The committee is considering Government Amendment number 1 on sheet AS 301, and the question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against say no. No. I think the ayes have it. Noes have it. Division required. Ring the bells.
So the question is that
Amendment 1 on sheet AS 301 moved by the Minister for Anti-Wars be approved. So this is 2. There's this one.
right. No, it's going to go up. Yeah.
Lock the doors. Order. So the question is that amendment on sheet AS 301 number 1 is moved by the minister be agreed to. The ayes shall move to the right of the chair, the noes to the left. I appoint Senator Fawcett as tellers for the aye and Senator Kedar as teller for the noes.
Still on.
30.
Order. There being 30 ayes and 26 noes, the matter is resolved in the affirmative.
So you probably want to call the opposition,
Senator Cameron.
Thanks, Deputy President. I would now move the amendments on sheet 8354.
Yes. Did you wish to speak to the amendments? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
I just would like to repeat that there's insufficient evidence at this stage to show that the existing trials in Ceduna and the East Kimberley are working. The Senate inquiry heard that ARIMA evaluations of the trial are unreliable and that no empirical judgment can be made on the basis of the information collected. In its own consultations, Labour heard mixed results, with some participants in Ceduna and in the East Kimberley trials finding the cashless debit card to be useful, while others thought it had not made any improvements to their lives. In addition to the poor quality of the evaluation, Labour believes that the Ceduna and the East Kimberley trials have not been running long enough to form solid conclusions about the success or otherwise of the trials. Labour supported the initiation of the trials in East Kimberley and supports them continuing for a further year to allow more time to reliably determine whether they have been successful. Now, we require a more rigorous evaluation of the cashless debit card in the existing trial areas prior to any expansion. The trials are also of a significant cost, and we've heard tonight that it's around $25.5 million or $12,000 per participant, and the response we got from the Minister is that it would be even more expensive than that. We know that the government spent $1.6 million to Arima Research to provide what we believe is substandard evaluation. So we just don't think that enough has been done by the government to justify the expansion, and we do support the establishment of trials in East Kimberley and Ceduna on the basis that the communities wanted and had consented to the trial card. Now, we consulted with communities in the proposed trial regions of Bundaberg and Goldfields, and as well as the evidence presented in the Senate inquiry, it's clear there's been insufficient government consultation with these communities. And the Minister could provide us the names of the councils that supported the expansion, but couldn't tell us the name of one of the 86 participants in the consultation who had opposed the trial. Not that no one opposed the trial, but the Minister just didn't have that information, and the advisers couldn't provide that information. Now, the Minister's taken that on notice, so I'll be pleased to get the result of that agreement to take those issues on notice and provide the details. Now, the government must provide a formal process of consultation and a clear framework for establishing whether communities consent to the trial. The Minister had an opportunity to take us through how the consultation worked, who opposed the consultation, what were the issues that were raised in terms of the opposition from the groups within the 86 who opposed the consultation, but we didn't get that. That's pretty typical of this government. They determine what they want to do, and they just impose it on local communities. And they get then they'll offer a bauble or a small gift of something that the NXT party think is a good thing, and they'll just vote with them. I mean, it's pretty typical of NXT these days that they just are another Liberal party supporting the government in its endeavours to implement what we think is flawed legislation and bringing flawed bills to this Parliament. So we believe there's insufficient evidence. We would require a more rigorous evaluation. Our amendments seek to improve the way the trial works in Ceduna and East Kimberley by ensuring that the rules by which a community body makes recommendations to the Secretary are transparent and made public. Labour, in its own consultations, heard that the way in which the decisions were made by the community body were not always clear and transparent. And the government must specify funding for wraparound services and trial sites formally in the legislation. I mean, the wraparound services are absolutely important. There's no point in putting these cards in without appropriate wraparound services. The Minister could give me a figure on what wraparound services cost across the country, but for the bill that's been brought here, we didn't get any specified idea of what the wraparound services were costing. Now, we are seeking that the government specify the social support services to ensure trial participants get the alcohol rehabilitation, mental health and other support services they need. The funding allocated and the new services being delivered are not clear to trial participants. This amendment requires the information be made public. So our amendments would improve this bill, and on that basis I move the amendments on sheet 8354 and seek that they be moved in as one.
Senator Cameron, just for clarification, are you moving just amendment number 2 on sheet 8354?
I'll move amendment 1 as well.
1 and 2.
It needs to seek leave to move them both together.
You need to seek leave to move both together?
I sought leave to...
Okay.
Is leave granted? There be no objection, leave is granted. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Chair. Sorry.
Yes, excuse me, Minister. You want to clarify something, Senator Cameron?
Yeah, I'd like to have them dealt with separately.
Yeah, we'll deal with them separately then, that's fine. So you deal with number 2 first? Yeah. Okay, we're on amendment number 2, Minister, on 8354 sheet. Go ahead.
Thank you. The government will not be agreeing to the opposition's amendments to the bill. The amendments put forward would prohibit the proposed expansion of the card and effectively restrict the proper implementation of a trial. While the government welcomes the opposition's support of the current sites and the extension of the trial time frame, we don't believe the opposition has considered what its amendments would mean for existing trial sites. The proposed opposition amendments with regard to provided services and community consultation will place an unnecessary and potential harmful administrative burden on the department when it needs to respond to community requests. The government rejects the proposed amendment regarding to the trial site limit because it would prohibit the expansion of the debit card to the Goldfields region in Western Australia. There is a strong need for additional tools to address social harm in the Goldfields. WA police data indicated the domestic and non-domestic assault rate in the Goldfields is more than twice the state average. Alcohol is a factor in 2/3 of the domestic assaults from 2009 to 2013, and half of all non-domestic assaults, alcohol-related hospitalisations and deaths were 25% higher than the WA state average in 2007 to 2011. In a statement to the Senate inquiry into the bill in late 2017, the Shire of Leonora CEO Mr James Epsis said, and I quote, "In the last 3 years it has been devastating to see the escalation of antisocial behaviour between individuals caused by alcohol and drugs. This has often reached crisis level." Unquote. Shire of Laverton President Mr Patrick Hill told the committee, we are at wits' end. We want to see a safe community. We don't want to see this abuse. We don't want to see kids running around with dirty nappies on for a couple of days and no clothes. In September 2017, the Prime Minister announced the government's intention to expand the cashless debit card to the Goldfields following extensive consultation across the community. Between May and December 2017, over 300 consultations were held with over 86 organisations and 10 public information sessions. Consultation is ongoing in the Goldfields in preparation for implementation. Momentum in the community for the trial has been considerable, with a number of working groups established in late 2017 to assist with implementation and planning. Implementation, planning and oversight. The expansion of the program demonstrates our commitment to provide a strong social welfare safety net, reducing social harm in areas with high levels of welfare dependency and supporting vulnerable people, families and communities.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, the Minister's position as outlined just doesn't make any sense. It would only make sense if there was a proper evaluation, but there has not been a proper evaluation, even though the government spent, over $1.6 million. The evidence that we had was that the evaluation was flawed. That was a clear evidence in the Senate inquiry. So what we are trying to do here is create a new trial end date of the 30th of June 2019 for both Ceduna and the East Kimberley, so that a proper evaluation can be made. We accept that some people are saying they want this to continue, but in our consultations in both Ceduna and East Kimberley, there were many saying that this should not continue and are opposed to it. So our amendment creates a new trial end date. It limits the trials to only 2 discrete trial areas in the current locations. It opposes the removal of the limit to 10,000 participants, and it specifies how people in the trial areas who are on the cashless debit card can have the proportion of their income payments on the card reduced, and it specifies the social support services that are to be delivered as part of the trial. Now, the Minister has been, every time, on her feet, able to tell us all those who support the card continuation. But she has not been able to even identify through her own consultations, or the government's own consultations, those that oppose it. So this is a sensible range of amendments. It continues the existing trial for a period of 12 months. It limits the trials to the 2 areas. It opposes the removal of the limit to 10,000 participants, and it specifies the proportion of the income support payments on the cards that can be reduced, and it specifies the social support services that are to be delivered as part of the trial. So we think these are sensible amendments, and we would certainly hope that the crossbench and NXT would support this as a balanced approach to what we're dealing with. Don't just back the government in. You would have the crossbench would have more validity in backing the government in if the government could have given us any details of how the consultation in the goldfields had taken place. Can't give us that. Can give us the names of the consultation, but can't tell us who opposed the card being introduced. So there hasn't been an open, fair and reasonable approach on this by the government. The government, in my view, is determined to push this cashless welfare card out even wider than what is proposed in this bill. Labour will never support a national rollout of the cashless debit card. We will only support where local communities support this, and this because the Minister is unable or unwilling to tell us who opposed the card and the reasons for the opposition. Our estimate is, through our consultations, that the amendments that are before the Senate tonight are the appropriate amendments to give a balanced approach to this and to make sure that proper consultation takes place in the future.
Senator Cameron, could I just clarify with you on your amendments to paragraph 2 has already been agreed to with the government amendments prior? See your paragraph 2, omit 30 June 2018, subject 30 June 2019.
Yeah.
That's already been voted in the last government's amendments and agreed to. I'll just bring that to your attention, that section.
Yeah, but that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
That's correct, but it's a widening. We are not supporting the widening to the goldfields.
Yeah, fine. Just at that date, that one point there has been agreed to. I'm saying one of your amendments has already been agreed to.
But not in the context that we want it agreed to.
Okay. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. Look, I'd like to counter some of the assertions that Senator Cameron has been making this evening in relation to the Orima research. The evaluation was conducted by Orima Research, which is an independent research company chosen after a public tender process to ensure independence and objectivity. The conduct of the evaluation has been under the auspices of the CDCT Evaluation Steering Committee, comprising of members from federal government departments and representatives from relevant state governments. The evaluator provided coverage of the general methodological limitations in the final report. Orima Research provided a technical report as an appendix in the final report, noted the sources from which findings were drawn, caveated findings where necessary and noted where sample sizes were not additionally significant. The evaluation also found that there are areas that we can improve on, and as we roll out the CDC in the Goldfields and Bundaberg and Hervey Bay regions, we will take these learnings into account. The government is satisfied that the evaluator undertook the evaluation in a professional manner, and where results needed to be interpreted with caution, the evaluator highlighted this. Key results from the final evaluation include: of those who drank alcohol before the trial started, 41% say they are drinking alcohol less often, up from 25% at Wave 1. Of those who said they were using illegal drugs before the trial started, 48% reported using illegal drugs less since the card's introduction, up from 28% at Wave 1. Of those participants who said they gambled before the trial started, 48% reported gambling less, from 32% at Wave 1, and of those parents surveyed, 40% reported being able to better care for their children since being on the CDC, and 39% reported being more involved in their children's homework and school. In addition, the evaluation found widespread positive spillover benefits from the card, including 45% of participants reporting being able to save more money than before being a trial participant, up from 31% at Wave 1, and 23% of participants indicating they spent 11 hours or more per week trying to get a job or paid work. The evaluation has shown that strategies implemented in the first two sites have been effective in combating avoidance behaviours. Overall, the evaluation has shown a decrease in these behaviours between the Wave 1 report and the Wave 2 report. It also found that, I quote, most stakeholders, community leaders and merchants did not perceive these practices to be pervasive or widespread, unquote. Can I also clarify for the Senate that the cashless debit card is only applied to working age welfare payment recipients, and the card does not apply to aged pensioners, veterans payment recipients or wage earners in the trial areas. And the cashless debit card program has been designed, if I can, in conclusion, say that to ensure persons' lives are not disrupted as the program works to reduce the consumption of alcohol and drugs and reduce gambling. These restrictions ensure that those receiving welfare payments and their children will have money available for life's essentials. For people who already spend their money responsibly, the cashless debit card has very little impact. However, where participation would not be appropriate, the cashless debit card is not applied. For example, people do not participate in the program if they have a payment nominee, they are students living outside the trial area for study, or CDC participation would seriously risk their mental, physical or emotional well-being. Risks are assessed on a case-by-case basis. It is important that the department is provided with the flexibility and discretion to apply exemptions where necessary, and accordingly the government will be voting against the amendments proposed by the opposition.
Senator Seward.
So I just wanted to indicate to the chamber that before I start with any further comments, that the Greens still do not support this legislation. Under no circumstances will be voting to support it. Having said that, there are amendments in this particular batch of amendments that make things just a modicum, or if they were supported, would make things a modicum better in terms of ensuring that social support services are provided in the trial areas. The 3 to 2 discrete so-called trial sites, and the legislative instrument about how an agreement of a kind mentioned in paragraph 2.6, the amendment part 5 is something that we would support, just to see that this legislation was improved slightly. But I've got to be really clear, we do not support the cashless welfare card. So we will very strongly be voting no on the third reader, regardless of these amendments, because we don't support the card.
Thank you, Senator Seward. So the question is, Senator Cameron.
I just want to reinforce Labor's position. Labor believes that given that the government seems to have crossbench support for what reason I don't know, but given the government has the crossbench support, these amendments will make it, as Senator Seward says, a modicum better, and we appreciate your support for that to make it better. We do not support the national rollout of this card, and I think what is clear is that this government would roll this out nationally if it could. And this is the type of overbearing position that this government adopts when it comes to some of our most disadvantaged people in the community. Many people in the community live on an income that many of us could not ever contemplate living on, and they do it better than most of us ever could. They look after their families, they look after the health of the family, they look after the education of the family, and they do that on an income that is tiny. And to say to them, you must have this cashless debit card, is the height of arrogance from this government. And we are of the clear view that you can only and should only ever implement a cashless debit card when there has been a proper process of consultation, a clear and unequivocal process of consultation, and a process of consultation that is far more transparent than what we've heard tonight, where the government can't tell this place of one group who don't support the card out of the 86 that were consulted. You know, it just is bizarre that no one of the advisors, the minister, can't tell us who opposed the card and why they opposed the card while we're in the chamber debating this bill, because these are important issues. So we oppose the national rollout. We oppose a rollout within any individual community without a proper evidence-based approach, and that has not been done even where it's been rolled out now. We take the view that the ORIMA evaluation was flawed. That was the evidence that came to the Senate inquiry, and on that basis, the amendments that we put, given that it looks like NXT are behaving like a sub-branch of the Liberal Party, that's where we're at. So we think this will take some of the sharp edges off, and that the process that we would have in government would be proper consultation, consultation that is understood by the community and the public generally, not the secret approach that's been adopted by the government, and not setting out to force this onto people who quite clearly can handle their finances, no matter how difficult it is on social security payments in this country. So I appreciate the Greens supporting the amendments that they've outlined. I think that's appropriate, and I understand that their opposition to the bill, and we would hopefully have some of the crossbench listen to the debate, take into account the incapacity of the government to answer some basic questions on the rollout of this card, and adopt a process in the future that is transparent and fair.
So the question is that the Amendment 2 on sheet 8354 moved by Senator Cameron, be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against no. I think the noes have it. Ayes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes.
Doors. Lock the doors. So the question is that Amendment 2 on sheet 8354 be agreed to. The ayes shall move to the right of the chair, the noes to the left. I appoint Senator Kedder for the ayes as teller and Senator Smith as teller for the noes.
I have a teller.
Order. There being 26 ayes and 30 noes, the matter is resolved in the negative. Senator Cameron.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy President. So I now move that Schedule 1, Item 1, page 3, lines 4 to 6 be opposed. That is basically the short title of the Act.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. We will oppose this amendment. I've outlined the government's position previously, and so we will be opposing this amendment as well.
Senator Cameron.
Yeah, thanks. If I could take the opportunity with the crossbench here, I mean, it's been clear tonight that the position adopted by the government is based on flawed analysis of what's been happening in the Kimberley and Ceduna areas. We take the view that the crossbench should support this because it's a good middle position between what the government's proposing and the opposition to this bill completely. It provides a number of amendments that would have softened the bill, but you voted against that. Now is the opportunity for you to actually reconsider and support a proposition that means a good middle ground on this bill.
Senator Cameron. So the question is that Item 1 of Schedule 1 stand as printed. Those of that opinion say aye. I'll repeat this, Minister Fierravanti-Wells. The question is that Item 1 of Schedule 1 stand as printed. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against no. I think the ayes have it. Noes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes.
Lock the doors. The question is that item 1 of Schedule 1 stand as printed. The ayes shall move to the right of the chair, the noes to the left. I appoint Senator Smith as teller for the ayes and Senator Urquhart as teller for the noes. Order. There being 30 ayes and 26 noes, the matter is resolved in the affirmative. The question is that the bill as amended be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. The question is that the bill be reported. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. The committee has considered the Social Services Legislation Amendment, Cashless Debit Card Bill of 2017 and agreed to it with amendments. Minister.
I move that the report of the committee be adopted.
So the question is that the motion is moved by the minister be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. Minister.
I move that the bill be now read a third time.
So the question is that the motion as moved by the minister be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes. And you want
Lock the doors. The question is the bill be read a third time. The ayes will pass to the right of the chair, the noes to the left of the chair. I appoint Senator Smith, teller for the ayes, Senator Urquhart, teller for the noes. The result of the division is ayes 30, noes 26. The matter is resolved in the affirmative. The clerk.